No, I don't think that Amy Adams, don't know why Amy Adams has joined us yet. She was going to try and join us if she was able to. But yeah, we'll get underway and I'll pass to Alex.
Thank you. By way of brief introduction, before I hand over to Paul, obviously our in-house water service delivery plan was rejected by the government. It was actually in their assessment report, they passed most elements of it, but the point at which they failed us on was on the asset condition assessment. And they gave us a deadline of the 30th of June this year for resubmitting our water services delivery plan, with a strong encouragement in there to look at different delivery options. Council has subsequently decided to join Southern Waters as our delivery method. This is the first draft of the revised plan that we've shared with you, so acknowledging that there are little errors in there and typos and things like that, but we wanted to get your eyes on it as soon as possible, given the deadline we're working towards. Whilst we've got to the 30th of June to submit, the DIA have expressed a preference of us submitting earlier so that they can actually complete the assessment by the 30th of June and get the process closed off. So that's what we're trying to work to at the moment, with a view to bringing this to council next week, if we get to a stage where we're sufficiently happy that it is a robust plan and that we've tied up all the loose ends in there. So the other thing I mentioned is Honourable Amy Adams has reviewed the plan and provided her feedback, which I think Stuart and the team are incorporating into it. I did a first review of it over the weekend as well and passed comments in, but I think at this stage it's just a status check where the plan is at before it comes to you, and get any comments and concerns aired now, so that we can feed those into the revised draft to come before council. Paul.
Well, that was about my summary. I think, just probably clear about what we need out of this. We recognise this is really your only opportunity to look at the revised water service delivery plan. We've scheduled a meeting next week to approve it for the reasons that Alex just outlined. The changes are designed to address the matters raised in the letter issued by the Secretary of Local Government, and to reflect the other decisions that Council has made subsequent to the submission of the first plan. So that includes Southern Waters. It needs to still include the matters in relation to revenue that were decided last week. So we got the plan at the same time you made that decision, so it wasn't possible to sort of look into the future and reflect those. So that's had some positive impact on the plan, and Stu's also found a couple of other matters that when considering it as a whole and what the plan will look like going forward, also make the plan look slightly better than it was previously in terms of its impact and compliance. Probably the last thing is we need to be realistic about, this document has a very short life. Southern Waters has already started working on their water strategy, and once that is adopted, it will completely supersede the water service delivery plan. So it probably has a maximum life of about 12 months. The key information that is included and the decisions you've made will be reflected in that water strategy, because Southern Water is committed to pretty much picking up all of the delivery plans and carrying on with those. So let's give this the effort it deserves. So I'm not going to talk about all the changes. They're summarised on pages 4 to 6. There'll be some further ones that really reflect the revenue and other sort of editorial changes. So rather than us keep talking, I think it'd be better if we start responding to queries and then perhaps wrap up, because we do only have 55 minutes to get through this one. So if we can move it over to queries.
Thank you, and I'm just recognising we've got Honourable Amy Adams online joining us now. So good morning, Amy, and just recognising, well, she might have disappeared again. That's right, she was there, and I think she's gone. But I'll pass over for a start to.
I was just wondering, so that we're not jumping around all over the place, whether we take it in sections and check whether there's queries in that, so that, we've got the Part A statement around financial sustainability, and then we can move into Part B, sort of section 1, section 2, and just check in rather than jumping around with questions. Is that a better way of doing it, so that we can?
Possibly there's a few things. I'll just say, Stu, you were looking like you might have something to say. Just
No, I was just enthusiastically agreeing with Alex that it's going to be far easier on my end if we deal with it in sections as well.
Okay, no, that's fantastic. So I'll start with Franz now, recognising Franz has done a fair bit of work in this space. So he's been through here, and I did share with him just last night Amy Adams's feedback. So he probably hasn't had a lot of chance to sit on that, but we'll start there, Franz.
Yeah, just picking up on what Mr. Hope said or Paul said. Yeah, I have done a fair bit of work on that. I have shared it around to everybody. Most of my comments around editorial. I do believe the document as it stands at the moment is a hybrid between our original water service delivery plan and one that is addressing us joining or have joined in Southern Waters. I'm not going to go through bit by bit. I think my comments are there. I just request that they are looked at and that in the end we actually do provide the IA with a quality document. I think there's a few items there that have to be addressed. I would hate to see this come back and say, go and clean it up and be more professional, get a higher quality in it. I think we can do that ourselves. So that's where I'll leave basically my comments on there for everybody to check. And to either follow up or not. That's in the end it is that document that for you to produce finally to DIA. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly recognise those comments, and the document will be tidied up. The priority was to get the changes in it and get it out so people could make comment rather than a polished document that people only had like a day to look at. So that was what I agreed with Morrison Lowe. And just fully acknowledge that, yeah, it's a work in progress to allow us to get to a point and allow genuine feedback from everyone that it was circulated to.
No, I appreciate the sentiment there, Mr. Hope. I guess if we start first of all just with the summary of changes, and I'm just looking around to see if there's anyone that's got any comment on that. So, Councillor Downing.
I note on page 5 there, the growth investment, we're pushing back a little bit on that. What was the feedback from Amy Adams on that? And I'd also be interested if we could get a copy of that when the DIA feedback comes in, just to see that before we make the decision.
I guess there's a couple of things in that. First of all, I can circulate Amy's feedback. I've sent that at the moment just to Franz, just recognising the work heads that have gone through, but I can circulate that wider. But I don't know if there's anything in particular on that piece.
Oh, cool. So nothing on the growth feedback on that.
I'll have a wee look. While I'm doing that, is there any other questions on the summary? On the summary of changes?
The credit rating, I think then, am I correct to assume the intent of council to get a credit rating was when it was looking to go in-house? And are we still looking at getting a credit rating now that it's going to Southern Waters?
That'll be a decision that'll be made once we've formulated the next long-term plan and looking at what the projected debt position is over that 10-year period. Yeah, I mean, there's a cost to it, but there's also a benefit if you have a certain amount of debt that's going to be in place for a while. So I wouldn't want to preclude the possibility, but it's not an absolute certainty or requirement as it was under the in-house model.
Just going to Amy Adams' comments. So there was a comment that she made around growth and what might appear to be a bit of a mismatch between what we've allowed for in growth and what projected growth is. I think officers have addressed this before, and I don't know whether Paul Hayes wants to comment on this, but in our renewals programme, we're allowing for additional capacity in there, and that's not showing up as a separate element of funded growth. It's just being built into our renewals. I don't know whether you want to add anything to that, Paul, or does that cover it sufficiently?
So yeah, just to highlight the comment that Amy did make on that one, note projected residential water supply capacity from 24 to 34 is growing at 10.1%, but growth projections for the district over the same period is showing is 11.9. It's a question whether this will be considered a material disturbance. So that's, yeah, been addressed in that space. Did you have anything else, Councillor Felling, for now?
Not that.
Councillor McCone, then Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, I read through this and it's very comprehensive and well done to the time that's taken to do it. We're working under an administrative and legislative timeline. The practical reality may be different, but if this is what it takes to get across the line and get us moving forward, well, then so be it. And of particular note, and I'm very pleased that it's mentioned in there, is the comment on rural water is recognised as district service with the statement of expectation from Southern Waters. So no, I have no problem with it.
No, thank you very much, Councillor McCone. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, look, just picking up on Alex's comment about growth, the document is, I would have thought it's slightly problematic in the sense that if you look at page 43 of this water services delivery plan, it says we've opted for a high growth formula and we're expecting growth of 11.9%. And that's based on, I think it's estimates and advice from Bill. But if you go to page 101, across all three of the water categories, there's a statement that says minimal growth is expected district-wide. But you can't have high growth and minimal growth. I mean, those statements need to be made consistent, I would have thought, rather than actually contradicting each other.
While Paul's having a look, the reality is high growth for this district is actually quite small compared to what is considered to be a high growth council. So, you know, that 11% is, you know, 1% a year. Yeah. And as we said, the way they want some of the spending classified, it goes into what the majority of the spend is for. So if it's like a renewal project where you go through and increase pipe size, it's treated as renewal, even though it's got a growth component in it. So yeah, this is a matter that has been traversed by the team on numerous occasions. We can look at the wording, but again, we're comfortable with the assumptions in it.
Thank you. Councillor Felling.
I'd also note that in terms of growth, a lot of people I talk to in the rural schemes are looking at alternatives for stock waters. So am I right in assuming that if we get a lot of rural properties dropping off those large volumes of water that aren't going to human health at all, that will free up capacity and allow for some, you know, provide some growth essentially without having to build anything other than maybe some stock water schemes?
That'd be a factor, but most of the growth will occur in the urban areas. So because we're still dealing with a number of semi-isolated schemes, yeah, it'll be a slight counter to it, but yeah, unfortunately we can't. It's not a unified network, so it's not. You can't move them from one place to another.
And I guess,
oh, sorry.
I was going to say, just to expand on that a wee touch, that ones coming off it just makes it more expensive for the ones that are staying on the scheme. So the cost factor probably still stays the same, because I think to get the water up to the stage it needs to be at, that cost still needs to be done, but I think after the initial cost implications of bringing the scheme up to spec, then it's probably got a longer shelf life, I would imagine, for growth aspects.
No, understood. I was probably more thinking just the Ham Neck line, which is majority serviced by irrigation schemes as well. So probably, but yeah, I take your point. A lot of the isolated ones that might not apply so much.
Yes, Ham Neck would certainly help. Of course, the other side is, a lot of the growth is actually in the wastewater areas, which generally don't service a lot of the rural properties aren't serviced by us in terms of wastewater.
Yeah, Councillor Holden.
Just on page 5, the part about affordability, I'm just wondering if we can actually have that statement in there, considering the key directions we've just given for the 26-27 financial year, and then the charges going up for the next year and something. I don't think it has been addressed. Well, to a degree.
So that's probably one of the major pieces that still needs to be developed. And Morris and Lowe have been doing some work on essentially what does the revised price path look like now that council is part of Southern Water. It wasn't a direct issue in some of the comments. So maybe Stu could answer this one about, you've made a decision. That's a good way to the starting point, but we could actually reach the sort of the desired revenue a little later. In the initial plan, it was sort of hitting it at about year 5, so that can be moved out. So the price plan for the community can be flattened a wee bit. Maybe Stu, if you could comment on that.
Before Stu comes in, can I add a bit of context? So when we were originally looking at being part of Southern Waters, it was quite a smooth increase in the prices charged for water. But when we're looking at the in-house model, in order to have sufficient revenue to be able to undertake the borrowing that was necessary, it was quite a steep increase. So I think it was 27% increase in rates overall for the next financial year, and about a similar amount again for the following year. But obviously we're not in that scenario now, so there's an opportunity to smooth that price pathway.
I'll text you and just recognising that Amy Adams is back online as well. So welcome, Amy. Stu.
I won't dwell on this too long. So there's a statement on page 5. Once we get your annual plan numbers and update the financials again to reflect the decision you made last Tuesday, that statement may need revising, but we have looked in the meantime as a result into how we might be able to make that price path smoother and less steep. I need to engage with Southern Waters on that as well, though, because in order to do that, there are some implications on its compliance with like Southern Waters as a whole's compliance with its FFO metrics, which may or may not be acceptable or comfortable for Southern Waters. So we need to just make sure that we're finding a balance there that fits for both of them. Ultimately, the price in 2034 is pretty much the price in 2034. So it's just how quickly you get there is the challenge. At the moment, this is, as Paul mentioned, a water services delivery plan. It does have some assumptions around what that price path even looks like and how they allocate and determine local prices anyhow that are not decisions that have been made by Southern Waters at this point, and there are a number of options that they can take in terms of that. We've taken an approach that we thought was useful for the WSDP and was consistent with how we've done it in the past for Southern Waters. That doesn't mean that that's the same approach that will ultimately be adopted. So even if we do smooth the price paths out in here, that doesn't mean that's the ultimate price path that's accepted by Southern Waters anyhow. But we will, we're going to try and make sure we get a good balance between that for everyone, and see what we can do there.
Thank you, Stu. Amy, I just wonder whether or not there's anything you wanted to add into the mix while we've got you here.
Thanks, Mel. No, look, I'm really here just to listen in and hear how the discussion tracks. And my apologies, my camera's off. I'm transiting between appointments actually through the top end of your district. So I'll leave the camera off and just listen in, but can answer any questions if there are any for me as we progress.
Thank you very much. Right, councillors, is there any other questions at this stage? Councillor Hopkins.
Look, I just, one of the things that puzzles me about this, I note Franz's comment that it's a hybrid because there's a reference on page 55 that says that we've rethought everything. WDC has reviewed its 10-year capital program following its decision not to join Southern Water CCO and continue with in-house service delivery model. So that would need to change, I imagine. And on pages 79, 78 and 79, there are references to the 3 councils involved with Southern Waters, not 4 as it is now. But my question relates to all the figures in here. Aren't they all entirely hypothetical post 30 June 2027? I mean, you look at page, for example, page 40, there's 22.67 million of expenditure. Next page, 41, there's 61,670,000. And it looks as though we're saying we'll be spending that. But with Southern Waters taking over from 30 June 2027, surely all of these figures become conditional and subject to them saying, we're not interested in doing that, or we have other priorities, or we don't want to do that, or we want to do it a different way at a different price. I mean, why are we putting in figures for 10 years when we as an entity are disengaging in just over 12 months?
I think, Jim, you need to remember this is a water services delivery. This is a water services delivery plan. So this is the plan for what it looks like moving forward, and it needs to be approved by DIA. So then any other discussions around the changes to that will need to be approved by DIA as well. This is a plan that we have to set legally, and so we need to basically do what we believe is our best guess of what can be achieved within that time frame and send that back to DIA. If that gets approved, then that there is a contract that is entered into, that is then passed on to Southern Waters as how we will carry that out. I'll pass to Alex and then to Stu.
So I was going to say, in terms of your initial comments and the mismatch, we circulated what we told you was a first draft, because we're trying to get through this process to meet, the DIA requirements. So there are mismatches in there, and they're going through the process of tidying those up at the moment. And any you spot, I think Fran spotted quite a few of them, has fed them in. They'll get corrected. But it is the fact that we have to deliver a water services delivery plan to DIA that is compliant with the Act. But once Southern Waters is established and up and running, they will look at it all again through the water strategy that they're required to deliver. But we can't help that. That's just where we're at. We have to focus on delivering a water services delivery plan. And that's the case for every water services delivery plan in the country. It's a point in time to meet the requirements of the Act. And those water services that are transferring to CCOs, the CCO is then responsible for it and will recast it all again, just as we recast our finances every few years through the LTP process.
Yeah, I think you've just said what I said. In other words, basically, post the establishment of SWDW, all of these figures become notional. In other words, these documents, which Parliament has so assiduously required us to produce and pay for, are essentially works of fiction. I mean, because they're predicated on an assumption that we know is incorrect. We won't be doing the work and rating to actually pay for it. Somebody else will have taken over and may or may not see fit to replicate our proposals and or our intentions.
So they're not works of fiction. They are works that are at a point in time, but recognizing that the future will be different when someone else takes over responsibility for it, and recognizing we need to do it. We haven't got any choice, so we can keep debating the merits of it, but that doesn't change anything. We've got to do it and get on with it.
Yes, yes.
Stu, I'll throw to you for...
I'm probably throwing myself into an argument here. No, I recognise your point there, Councillor Hopkins. I mean, as Alex mentions, obviously the Water Services Delivery Plan has mandated requirements in terms of putting out a 10-year investment plan. Absolutely agree that the reality is that Southern Waters will review that capital plan. I think what you need to take from this is that we have put forward the capital plan that we believe is necessary to be able to address the issues within Waitaki's district. That will go through a prioritisation process in Southern Waters, but what the plan is trying to say is that for this given investment portfolio or program of investment that we believe is necessary, this is what the financial implication is if Southern Waters is to deliver it. Now, also just noting that absolutely through the water services strategy process, we would expect that a capital program will be reviewed and modified. That may require a resubmission of the water services delivery plan. I suspect, if anything, what we're most likely to see is the capital program come down across the Southern Waters entity. But I would also note that through the water services strategies that have been produced to date through water entities that have been set up to operate from the 1st of July this year, so in a month's time, the capital programs have not been significantly revised from what the water services delivery plans originally had. That doesn't mean that Southern Waters won't do that itself, but it's not that different to our normal LTP process where we've set out a capital plan for the next 10 years, and then in 3 years' time we look at it all over again and start looking at what the remaining 7 years are. But point noted that it is a bit of a fiction. The point here is, like I say, is to show that even with delivery of that, that's what this program would look like.
Thank you, Stu. I've got Councillor McCone, Schleck, and Thelnan.
Yeah, look, again, it's based on a whole lot of assumptions, and it's not going to change a heck of a lot when we must apply with the legislation. I do note in here, and I think it's very good that for once we're planning for the worst and hoping for the best. But you know, don't forget, water is a living entity and can make the best made plans go out the window straight away. So you've got to be very careful. The other second thing I'd point on that is percentages are dangerous, and as Paul alluded to, our growth is 10%. According to my rough figures, there's 24,000 people in this district. If you take that at 10%, that's an increase of 2,410 years, which is 240 a year. If you take the average family of 4, that is 60 families per year. So you've got to be very careful on how you rate your percentages, where you're going and what you're doing. The other thing I'd point out, and I don't think it'll be picked up, but I think that'll be picked up in Southern Waters, and as Finn alluded to, there's a lot of guys out there, unless you get it right, and the rural schemes will start dropping off units of water, and that will put the rural cost up and actually put a pressure somewhere else on the cost of the business. But otherwise, we've got no choice, and it's good as gold.
You're not wrong. Councillor Schleck.
Yeah, I'll take on board Councillor Hopkins' remarks in the end, looking at it practically. The three partners in Southern Waters went through this process. They used estimates and calculations based on what they knew at the time. They got a water service delivery plan over the line, and we didn't. But I also take his point about some of the mentions on the three councillors. Just a question to either Paul. And just for example, on page 78, it starts and it keeps going for a couple of pages where there is, we keep referring to the three councils in the editorial. My question is, what about the actual tables that are produced? Are they free waters, or do they actually include Waitaki? Because that is something that occurs for quite a few chapters there.
So that's on me. I'll just jump in. No, that's literally just a typo in the text. And apologies for that one. We turned this around in about a week, so it missed a full, like the thorough QA process that we would have liked to have done just to be able to get it pulled together. The numbers and the tables absolutely include all four councils.
Thank you.
Councillor Thelnan.
I just wanted to test my understanding. So when Southern Waters review all this, it'll still have to go back to DIA for approval, will it?
Yes, I think the water strategy goes to DIA, but the Commerce Commission will play an increasing role, being the economic regulator, in terms of everything to do with these plans. And I think they will be looking for explanations if they start seeing big variations between information that was originally supplied, what's shown in the subsequent water strategy. And, again, they're much like our LTP, they need to be, updated and resubmitted on a pretty regular cycle. So again, the shift will move from DIA to the Commerce Commission, who will be very focused on deliverability and affordability.
So in here we've got that the affordability will be, I think, 30 million less than what we were planning. Better than what we were planning. But I've had comments from Southern Waters that it'll be no less expensive than the Go Alone, which is very different. To what degree, because obviously Commerce Commission will come in and look at our plan that we've set up and given to Southern Waters. Will Southern Waters be held to that $30 odd million improvement on the affordability, or will they have room to go up if they can convince the Commerce Commission it's prudent to do so?
So I can't, how the Commerce Commission actually chooses to operate, they've given very limited guidance. I think they're still working on how it will work. I think they're going to focus on the delivery, the water strategies, not the delivery plans, especially for a combined entity like Southern Water. So, but one of their affordability is one of the criteria that they will be judging the performance of these entities on. So I can't sort of really say much more than that at the moment.
Stu, did you want to add to that?
Just to probably make sure the facts are all there. So Water Services Delivery Plan gets approved by DIA. Yours is obviously going through an approval process right now. If your water services strategy differs significantly from the Water Services Delivery Plan, and it would have to be fairly significant, the Department of Internal Affairs may request that you resubmit a Water Services Delivery Plan. From a pragmatic perspective, DIA is not currently resourced to review additional water services delivery plans from a whole pile of new water entities as they develop their water services strategies, and will probably be looking to make sure that that they probably won't want new water service delivery plans to be submitted unless they are materially different, and particularly unless they are proposing a new delivery model in particular, which is the main thing that DIA was after with the WSDPs. In terms of Southern Waters comments, I'm not sure what conversations you've had, but the language that Southern Waters has used in the past has been it will be no more expensive than the in-house model rather than the contra, which is what I just heard. Sorry, I missed the councillor's name, mentioned before, but potentially those conversations have moved on since the last time I was involved in those conversations with Southern Waters. But I would just note that the Commerce Commission will be the main reviewer of the water services strategy. So DIA will not be reviewing the water services strategy going forward. There will be the Commerce Commission. They will be looking at the capital program put forward by the water entity, as well as the pricing path put forward by the water entity, and make sure that you conform with that. So I guess that's the key thing there. But like I say, one thing to appreciate is that these capital programs, if anything, are most likely to come down. DIA have encouraged that, partly because if you think about the water services delivery plans as a whole across the country, they were all developed in isolation of each other. And once you start adding all those plans together, it starts to look a little bit scary in terms of the deliverability of that amount of infrastructure across the country. So I think there is a concern at a national level that these plans may not be as deliverable as they may be if they were looked at in isolation. So I think there will be a bit of pressure for us to look at maybe flexing that back a little bit over time.
Good, thank you. I share that concern.
Councillor Holden, did you still know you're good?
I just on page 68 on the operational surpluses. So ratepayer be for funding depreciation and cost capital revenue. I'm just wondering, how's that band set at the 50 to 62%? It just seems like it would be a little bit heavy.
Wondering who wants that question.
So
I
operating
can
cash
probably
rate.
take it once I find the actual reference. Sorry, I'm trying to navigate the document.
Page 68 or 62 of the 104 page report.
62 of them. Okay, cool. Sorry, I went a bit further. Okay, so that operating cash ratio and that band. So that the band that is presented there in terms of that operating cash ratio that spits out the bottom is I'm going to get into way too complicated a detail around how the revenue is set in here. But basically, the revenue for the water entity is set by the amount of revenue that is required for the entity to meet its lending criteria. So to borrow enough money to fund the capital program. The operating cash ratio is effectively just an output on the other end of that. So we're not targeting a 50% cash ratio. That's the amount of cash that is retained in order to meet the debt to revenue requirements. I think it's probably the simplest way to explain that without getting into the inner workings of all of this. That's probably too technical for this forum right now.
I just wondered the surpluses, though, the surplus that'll go to debt. It seems like it could be quite a heavier load for the current ratepayer rather than smooth. Or am I reading that wrong?
Yeah, so I mean, what will happen is, yes, there's a reasonably heavy load on the ratepayer that is going to repaying debt, as you noted, or managing debt is probably the better way to put that. Over the long term, what that means is that the water entity has lower levels of debt than it otherwise would, which means that it therefore has lower interest costs and borrowing costs that it is passing on to ratepayers. So at the moment, yes, there is a fair surplus. Like I say, it's ultimately just a function of having to meet LGFA's requirements. When we look at what council would require to stay within its own borrowing limits, though, again, it still ends up being effectively a lower price, certainly in 2034, than it would otherwise have been.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Hopkins and Councillor Schrack.
Yeah, I don't know who can answer this, but I think it might be a matter that could become a bone of contention in the community. On page 66, looking at how Southern Waters will deliver, or what will be the consequences. Second bullet point says this results in average household charges increasing from 1.8% of median household income to 3.3% of median household income in the 2027 financial year. And then the fourth bullet point says charges reach 3.3% of median household income in 2034. But they've already reached that level, according to the second bullet point, in 2027, except that if you look at page 67, that's showing that FY, the 2027 year, they're showing that median household income percentage is 3.1. So can somebody confirm what the actual numbers are? And why are we saying this when the impact, I know it won't be in 2027, but subsequently the introduction of water meters will certainly moderate and amend consumer behaviour?
I'll take that one as well. The table is the correct place to look at the median household income. I think I made 3 revisions to that table just in pulling this together. And so those bullet points are probably from an earlier version of that table, Councillor Hopkins. So the table is the correct one. We will fix the bullet points in the next draft. The table is currently still requiring updates for the annual plan data. So the numbers in that table will change again. And therefore the bullet points will also change again. Won't change materially. And in terms of your point around water meters, agreed that will make a difference. It is very difficult to predict what that will look like from a per individual household perspective in a plan where we don't know what the water usage is for those households, or what the introduction of the water meters will do in terms of the water use that those households actually do, or the charging structure in terms of fixed versus volumetric charges. It is also worth noting that if it does result in reduced water usage by households, the total amount of revenue required by the water entity to deliver the water services still doesn't change. So all it might do is result in higher per unit charges for users. So it may not actually change the average anyhow.
It might also make it really obvious where holes in pipes and leaks and bits and pieces are, and that's going to also probably add to your capital program. So there's a early up, cost to that as well, as the savings. Councillor Schlack.
Question for you, Stu, and following up on your discussion with Councillor Thelning. You said that a water service delivery plan would only be required to the DIA if, I quote, it was significantly different. So will Southern Waters be required to issue a new water service delivery plan to DIA after ours assumably get approved?
No, we agreed with DIA that the financials presented in here, and that's why it's kind of a bit of a hybrid with a lot of the financials being Southern Waters combined financials, would be sufficient for Southern Waters as well.
Thank you.
Councillor McCone.
No, this might have not anything to do with it, or the thing outside left field, but Appendix 1 talks about resource consents, and considering what is coming down the track as far as district councils go and amalgamations, we're in the unfortunate position to sit across the boundary of 2. And so we're going to provide all the systems, Oamaru gets its water from the Canterbury ORC, the Canterbury Regional Council, but actually gets it delivered from the ORC through the Lower Take Irrigation Company. My point being, what guarantee do we have that these consents and everything else are going to be a lot easier and user-friendly than they are now?
I think that's a discussion for us to have through the simplifying local government space, and it's the devil in the detail. But yeah, totally get your point.
I agree. It just needs to be flagged. It needs to be thought about, because we can do as much as we like, but we might not have a water source.
We'll be working on trying to make sure we do have water sources. Probably my response to that. But yeah, absolutely understand what you're saying.
Consents will be under the 2 new planning.
Councillor Hopkins, you'll need a microphone on.
Those consents will be under the 2 new planning rules.
All right, councillors, is there any other questions at this stage? Councillor Schlack.
Not so much a question as it is a comment on page 24. What a fantastic graph. Can we just remember that? Because I reckon that'll be great for the review of an annual plan or an annual summary.
Yes. Right, councillors, anything else at this stage? I guess probably what we're hearing is that while there's a bit of work still to happen on just making sure this is streamlined and has picked up all the changes along the way that we need to have, that there's, as much as you're ever going to get through this process, a level of comfort that the direction we're heading in will hopefully actually get us to what we're looking for, which is an approved plan through the DIA, that it won't require Southern Waters to then repeat their process in any way, and that then it will pick up into the Southern Water process. And obviously, as soon as this does get approved, our next step is very much in the trying to move services to Southern Waters and to understand what the implications of that for us are. Did you want to add on anything in that space? So if there's nothing else, sorry, Mr. Hope.
So just to talk about the process, so obviously do appreciate all of the work that Councillor Clark has put into the reviewing it. We'll try and address as many of those issues. We're also getting feedback from a number of other parties. So you will not have the usual week for this coming agenda for the meeting on the 9th. 9th? Yes, 9th. But essentially, it will not be significantly different from what you've seen in front of you. This was mostly compliant. It now addresses the key concerns that was in the Secretary's letter. Working on the report and updating this pretty much as soon as we finish this workshop. What other information would you like in the report other than the revised delivery plan? I suppose, Rob, what I'm thinking about, do you want something like the feedback from Amy Adams as part of the document, or you're happy to have that circulated and we focus purely on the report itself? So just so we can meet your expectations, because it will be a bit late. Obviously, you'll need to approve it, but there will be the option to make minor amendments before the Chief Executive signs it off, as is required in the legislation. So it's just, it would be very useful to know now what your expectations are, because there will not be time to provide anything else once you basically get the report.
Councillor Thowne.
Just all the feedback from the various parties that we've sought feedback from for a start, but also perhaps what it means for individual, on average, individual households over those years, just to really spell it out so people can see what it means for them. Because I think we've all spent a lot of time going over this and can see what's coming, but I think it'd be really important for people to understand that in the plainest terms possible.
Councillor McCone.
Well, I have no problem if Mrs. Adams is quite happy for her comments to be mentioned. There's a footnote at the bottom. The more help we can do to put it in front of these people that are going to tick the box, the better it is. And I think we've nothing to hide, and just put it out there and just show it.
So you're talking a footnote on the bottom of our water services delivery plan, or as part of the report coming to council?
Either.
I guess just putting to Amy online whether or not you're comfortable putting anything on paper to say your level of support for what we're putting forward.
Thanks, Mayor. So probably the easiest thing is just for me to quickly verbally update the rest of the council that I've communicated with the Mayor and the Chief Executive to say that, in my view, the draft that's in front of you now meets all of those components that the Secretary's letter required it to contain, which is obviously a huge accomplishment for all of you. Where we're at now, of course, is that the Secretary and his team needs to go through and assess whether they are satisfied with the sufficiency and the adequacy of the detail of those components. That's a matter for them, not something I'll prejudge, but as I said, I'm satisfied that the pieces that required to be there are there. Other than that, I've just flicked through some sort of minor editing-y type comments along the lines of what you've been discussing this morning that the team will have. I don't think there's any particular value in those. They're probably being picked up in that final quality assurance and final drafting language anyway. But my high-level advice is simply that, happy for that to be included as a footnote in your council pack. I don't think it's appropriate that it would be in the water services delivery plan itself, but certainly happy that it's circulated to councillors as part of your report if that's what you would like. Can I make one other, just quick comment? I don't know if it's of help to you, Mel, but just listening to the discussion, just reflecting on the nature of the Commerce Commission regulation going forward, it's just probably worth commenting that the Commerce Commission will have a very different lens to the lens DIA is assessing these plans for right now. DIA is obviously concerned with ensuring compliance with the legislation, adequacy of the plans, deliverability, and that sort of much wider brief. ComCom, when they pick it up, are really only interested in doing two things, which is looking at the position of the water services delivery agency, so Southern Waters, as a monopoly provider to your community, and ensuring that they are not over recovering on that infrastructure as a sunk cost, and that they're not using that dominant market position in an unfair way to the consumers. So it's a very different lens that they will pick it up when they become the regulator from that as that pricing perspective, the same way they do for all other utility providers. So yes, they pick it up, but in a much more narrow consumer protective lens than you've had through this part of the process. So I'm sorry, I didn't want to reopen that debate, but just wanted to touch on the fact that it's quite a different lens that they apply. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Sorry, just to confirm, so as the asset condition information has been coming through, we've been sharing that with the Department of Internal Affairs, and they've been, I think, very happy with the work and the outcomes of it. Is that a fair assessment, Paul?
My final thing was just to acknowledge Paul Hayes and his team. So most of the work actually in this has fallen to his team, and he's taken that forward at pace. I think the value of having a dedicated asset planning team, I think, has come through in this process. That's a change we made through transformation. I think we've got more confidence in our maturity level. I think the graph you referred to, Councillor Slack, I think would have been a lot less pretty than that before we had a dedicated asset planning team in place. But Paul and his team are doing enormous work to actually move us forward within that space, and I think it's starting to show in this. So thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Now, I did have a hand up over here somewhere. Am I comfortable? All right. So I just want to echo that. Thank you to the team, because this has been a ginormous effort to get to here, and recognise the changing directions has played a big part in that. So I know you've had to pull out all stops, and it has been appreciated, and to get us to this stage in time, and plenty of time, especially when DIA sort of mentioned closer to the time that they hope to have the plan approved by that timeline, not just submitted, was just another spanner in the works that just pulled our timeframes a little bit tighter again, and it's been responded to well. So can you pass that on to the wider team on that one? Otherwise, we'll have this come back to us next week, and staff will get it to us as, I guess, soon as humanly possible, but there's a fair bit of work to do in the background in the interim. So just recognising that we'll be coming across desks a little bit late this week, or early next week. I'm not really sure. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, just want to thank you all very much, and I think we're good to finish this one off for now. So thank you for those online. Thank you, Stu, for your input today. I appreciate it. And Amy as well. We'll finish up there.